Josh! Woo! Josh!
Thank you. There was an old man. There was an old man who had grown so old. He walked around limping. He walked around limping with his crooked leg. There was a young boy. There was a young boy, too naughty for words. He laughed at the old man. He laughed at the old man till he turned into a cat. Have you ever noticed how very different each one of us is? Different in the way that we look, the way that we talk, the way that we laugh and sing. These differences are the things that make each and every one of us so special. But some people don't realize that. Once, there was a young boy who lived with his mother and father in a small town. He was a very naughty boy. In fact, naughtier than anyone you have ever seen. If he saw someone with crossed eyes or a shut upper lip, he would laugh at them. He would laugh and laugh until the person became embarrassed or angry or so upset that they burst out crying. One day, he saw a little girl with just 2 fingers on one hand. That boy laughed so much, he couldn't even eat his supper that night. His parents, they told him over and over again, that it was not right to laugh at other people just because they were different. They told him that everyone was beautiful and special in their own way. That's an excerpt from a story called The Boy Who Turned Into a Cat. My name is Jos Holman, and I'm going to talk to you about race and color. What about the kids? Take a look at this box of crayons. And when we look at this box of crayons, we see a variety of colors. And we probably think each one of those colors is special and beautiful in its own way. But how do we know that? I mean, do we absolutely, unequivocally know for a fact that each one of those colors is special and beautiful in its own way? Well, I would say that we probably can recognize a color, maybe even name it. Maybe there's a label on the color that tells us what it is. But we don't really know about the depth of that crayon. We don't know about the texture of that crayon. We don't know about its quality, especially its shading quality. How are we going to know that? We have to interact with the crayon. We have to use the crayon. We have to have a first-hand experience with the crayon. I would suggest to you that the crayon and that bit of color is not so far removed from us as human beings. How do we really get to know people? We have to interact with them. We have to be engaged with them. And as we do that, we begin to learn about their hobbies and their interests. We learn about their food likes and dislikes. We learn about their families. We learn about what they do, where they came from. And when we do that, we learn about different people and how to engage with them. And we learn that everyone is beautiful and special in their own way. Take a look at these hands. And when we look at these hands, some of us see different colors. I see different shades. But beyond that, what do these hands really represent? What do we know about these hands? Not anything, really. Not really at all. But these hands, we likely believe that each one of them is beautiful and special in their own way. Because these may be hands that play music, like Scott. These may be hands that are very skilled and can make a piece of furniture. These may be hands that just soothe and massage and console people. Who knows what these hands are? But again, we probably believe that they are special and beautiful in their own way. Some of you all may recognize what this represents. Yes, that's right. It's the great state of Texas, the place of my birth. All right? I was born and raised in Tyler, Texas, and lived there the first 20 years of my life. While I was there, I started elementary school in what was a school that had predominantly white students. There were about 25 of us who were black students. I remember it well. There were 2 black teachers in the whole school. One taught physical education and one taught music. And most of my time in that school was very positive. Really, I was a good student. And not only was it positive, I didn't have that many unusual situations. But there's a couple that I think relate to race and color as I talk about what about the kids. One actually happened with my own family. My siblings and I were sitting in a car at a grocery store waiting for our mom to come back to the car. And there were kids who were passing the car. And they were little white kids. And I would say, hey, how you doing? Hi, so-and-so. Hey. When my mother got back to the car, my sister said, Mama, would you tell Josh to stop speaking to those kids? He's embarrassing us. I thought, what was that about? I mean, I didn't think I was embarrassing anybody. My mother said to me, Josh, do you know those kids? I said, yes, I do. Mama, they're my friends. She said, well, then he's good. He can speak to his friends. The other thing that happened was a couple of years later in that same school, probably about 3rd grade, maybe 4th, there was a birthday party. And it was one of those friends. And I was excited about that birthday party. I was looking forward to going to that birthday party. Well, the birthday party came and went. And after that weekend, when we were back in school, I asked about the birthday party because I didn't go. You know why I didn't go? Because I didn't get an invitation. Race and color. What about the kids? We were just kids. That's what we were. In high school, I had many other activities that involved race and color, and yes, some of them very negative. In my high school, which was named Robert E. Lee, we had 2 race riots. One when I was a sophomore and one when I was a senior. And when we had those race riots, and immediately the couple of days after that, you can tell there was a strong divide in our school. And you can tell that we had no real understanding that each one of us was beautiful and special in our own way. When you saw the great state of Texas, there was a small insert in the great state of Texas. I don't know if you recognize that insert, but that was the state of Rhode Island. All right, I finished my undergraduate degree in Rhode Island. And in the summer of my junior year, I needed a place to stay for a short time for a summer job that I had. I stayed with a family. They were of Italian descent. The father was a husband and a wife and 2 small boys. The youngest boy was about 4 years old. I ate dinner with these families. I played with these kids outside. We played ball and other games. One day, while we were outside playing ball and other games, the 4-year-old asked me a question. And he asked me, how come my skin was darker than his? Okay, I was a little surprised. I didn't have an immediate answer. And I started talking about melanin. Yes, the melanin in my skin. And because we were outside, I was like, and you know, the sun can help make people darker. It's just that my darker is a permanent darker. It's not going to change. So you can think of it as a permanent tan. Okay, as an adult now, I really know I didn't give that kid a good answer. But I did the best I could as a 21-year-old. The one thing I know I did do right was the first chance I got that night, I told his parents. I let them know that their child was asking questions about color and race. Because I knew that the parents needed to be the ones who explained to their child whatever they wanted their child to know. Yes, the parents needed to explain. Remember what I said in the story? His parents told him over and over again that everyone was special, that everyone was beautiful and special in their own way. Well, from there, we're going to go to my college years. Having finished graduate school, I was looking for my first library position as a children's librarian. I was interviewing in North Carolina, and it was a great job, great library system. During the interview, I was asked to kind of wait for a little bit in a room that was off because someone was going to give me a tour of the city. While I was waiting in that room, an individual came into that room. It was a black man. And it was a black man who lived there. And so I asked him, hey, how is it living here in Wake County, North Carolina? He said, oh, things are well, things are all right here. I said, okay, and how's the housing? What's the cost? Oh, he said, told me what that was. And then I said, but how is it between the races? And he said to me, well, things are okay between the races, but we have Klan marches every year. Klan marches every year? Not what I expected. My wife and I had 4 children, and one of them was a newborn. All of them were under the age of 9. I was not ready to talk to my kids about the Klan. I was not ready to explain to them about the violent aspects of the Klan. And I was not ready to really talk to them in depth about racism. Race and color? What about the kids? Not my kids. Not there. No way. And this is just a picture of a Klan demonstration 1 year before I would have been there in 1988. So this is what is going on. And as we think about this type of activity, when we think about the kids and color, the question becomes, what do we really tell them? How do we answer them? Remember, as I talked about the family and explaining to the boy about melanin in my skin. Can we talk to kids, little kids, kids like this, even the 11-year-olds, about melanin? Should we use the big words? Even big words sometimes we don't even understand as adults, like systemic racism, like social justice, like anti-racist, like race is a social construct. That's not the way that we can teach kids about race and color. And when we go beyond that, we like to teach our kids to be, to have good manners, to say please, and to say thank you, and to say wait for your turn, wait in line. We like to teach our kids that. We take the time to verbally teach them that. On the other hand, in a nonverbal way, we may be teaching them something very different. When we see a person of color in a room getting close to us, do we clutch our persons? When we see a group of black kids walking across the street where you are stopped at a stop sign, do you lock your doors? Not anymore. Cars do it themselves. But what happens? You're walking on a walking trail. You're a couple, and as a black man is approaching you, you all of a sudden hold your spouse's hand. I'm telling you, I've seen all of those things in my lifetime. And I'm telling you that we are teaching our kids in a nonverbal way about race and color, because we're teaching them an aspect of fear and mistrust and a strong dislike of other people just because they are different. It's not right to laugh at other people just because they are different. Everyone is beautiful and special in their own way. So, not moving to North Carolina, I thought about this idea. This is an excerpt from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech. And the bold part, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Dr. King had a great dream, but I don't think that dream has become a reality yet. I think we're still waiting. Whitney Houston, a recording artist, had a song, great song, The Greatest Love of All. And that song started out with lyrics that went something like this: I believe the children are the future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Do we believe the children are the future? And if we believe the children are the future, then what's in store for their future? Race and color. What about the kids? Are we going to very intentionally teach them? Teach them to show respect? Teach them to be sensitive to others who are different than they are? When I think about the kids, I think the key thing we have to do is to be committed. We don't have to be experts in any given topic, but we have to be committed to trying to help kids be better. Help them to know how to interact and get along with people who are not like them, no matter what that not like them really is. I'm not an expert. I don't think I'll ever be an expert. And if you want some expert type look at this particular topic, we'll mention to you the blue eyes, brown eyes experiment. Y'all know about that? April of 1968, a particular time in this country when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. On April 5th, the day after he was assassinated, a lady by the name of Jane Elliott, she taught 3rd grade students. Jane Elliott decided to separate her kids according to the color of their eyes. So all of the blue-eyed kids were on one side, and all of the brown-eyed kids were on the other. And then when she did that, she also gave attributes to each group, attributes and qualities and roles and responsibilities. And then she stepped back and looked at how those kids interacted with each other. And they interacted very, very different with each other, and not in a good way. There was behavior that absolutely showed prejudice. And so Jane Elliott concluded that you can teach kids to be prejudiced. They can learn to be prejudiced. And so if they can learn to be prejudiced, then they can unlearn the idea of prejudice. We ought to be able to unlearn them. And that goes along with teaching kids before they learn to be prejudiced. Let me give you another example. Even before 1968, back in the 1950s, there were 2 psychologists, a black man and a black woman, who were actually husband and wife. They did what we commonly refer to now as the doll experiment. They took 4 dolls that all looked exactly the same in terms of clothes and hair and shoes and those things, but they had different skin colors. And they did this experiment with black kids. And they wanted to see how the black kids would react to these dolls. Well, in summary, a number of the black kids thought that the white dolls were much better, that they were good, and that the black dolls were bad. So even then, there was a sense of inferiority that was being developed in kids just by their surroundings. Do you realize that this particular research and this doll experiment was a part of the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education in the Supreme Court of the United States? And that Brown versus Board of Education was where the Supreme Court declared that separate but equal was unconstitutional. Race and color. What about the kids? Most of us as adults we think about, well, that was 1968, that was 1950, yeah, that was a long time ago. That's not what's going on now. Let me give you a couple of sources for you to check out on your own that are contemporary sources. 2 books. One written by Ibram X. Kendi, that's called How to Raise an Anti-Racist. And the other one, also written by Ibram X. Kendi, co-authored with Nick Stone. And that one is How to Be a Young Anti-Racist. Both of these books, published within the past 3 to 4 years, will help kids to understand, and more so parents to understand, how we teach our children. What should we teach our children about race and about color? What can we help them to understand? As I think about closing, we as adults, we look at people. We engage our personal biases, and then we reach conclusions about who those people are or what we think about them. And you know what? We teach the kids the same thing. But really, we don't have to teach the kids the same thing. We need to intentionally commit to teaching them something different. We need to teach them to be open to people who are different than they are. Teach them to show respect to others just because they're different. To be patient with others just because they're different. To be sensitive to them. To be kind to them. To get along with them. Everyone is beautiful and special in their own way. So I believe that we can do that. Okay, I'm going the wrong way again. This is the last slide. Thank goodness. It's not. You remember that crayon box? Remember that crayon box? Most of us, we look at a crayon. We say, that's a crayon. And its primary purpose is to color. And so I can do that. But there are others of us who are maybe younger than me, who would look at this crayon and they would think something very different. They would say, hey, look, you can roll with that crayon. They said, hey, look, you can flip that crayon. Hey, look, that crayon can dance. Hey, look, that crayon can fly. Each crayon can be different. Each crayon can be special. It can be unique in its own way. So those kids can think about that. And as we look at these hands, so we look at them and we wonder, what can they be? Let's first acknowledge that they are all special and beautiful in their own way. Thank you very much.